Jason never expected that one simple act of kindness would turn his life upside down. When a young boy's wheelchair broke, Jason, a small-town mechanic, stepped in to fix it for free, no strings attached. But what happened next shocked him to his core. A private jet lands in his town, and suddenly Jason finds himself face to face with a billionaire's family, offering him a life-changing opportunity. From working in a dusty garage to potentially running a cutting-edge facility, will Jason take a leap into the unknown? Watch now to discover how one good deed could rewrite his entire future.
Can you imagine the heartbreak of seeing a little boy, tears streaming down his face, staring helplessly at his broken wheelchair outside a dusty old garage? That's exactly what Jason, a struggling mechanic with grease-stained hands and a heart of gold, witnessed one sunny afternoon. Without a second thought, he knelt beside the boy, his voice soft but firm. "I'll fix it, buddy," he promised, knowing full well he wouldn't charge a single penny. The boy's mother gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Was this stranger really offering such kindness? Overwhelmed, she could barely speak. Days later, as Jason wiped the grime from his calloused hands, a deafening roar shattered the quiet sky above his small town. A private jet? Yes, a private jet landed nearby, kicking up dust and leaving everyone in town whispering, what on earth was happening? The events that followed were so astonishing, they left jaws on the floor. Jason stood there, wiping his hands on his tattered overalls, his gaze locked on the small boy struggling just outside his garage. The wheelchair's front wheel was twisted beyond repair, rendering it useless and trapping the child in place. His mother stood nearby, her face etched with exhaustion and worry. Jason had seen tough times before, who hadn't in this struggling town? But something about the boy's clenched fists on the armrests, his face crumpled in frustration, hit him like a ton of bricks. Why did this feel so personal? He stepped forward, dropping to one knee beside the boy. "Hey, buddy, looks like you've hit a rough patch, huh?" The child's big, hopeful eyes met his, shimmering with uncertainty. "It broke," the boy sniffled, glancing at his mother. "I was just trying to get down the sidewalk, and it just stopped." Jason's heart ached. He turned to the mother, his voice steady. "Let me take a look at it." "No charge." Her eyes widened in shock. "Are you sure?" "We don't have much," she stammered. Jason raised a hand, cutting her off with a warm smile. "I insist." Carefully, he lifted the wheelchair and rolled it into his cluttered garage, inspecting the damage under the dim fluorescent lights. The front wheel assembly was a mangled mess, the frame was misaligned, and the right brake was barely hanging on. This wasn't going to be a quick fix, not by a long shot. It would take parts, hours of labor, and time Jason didn't have. His tiny auto shop was barely staying afloat, with bills stacking up like old tires and customers scarcer than rain in a drought. But as he glanced at the boy, now perched on a rickety stool, watching him with wide-eyed wonder, none of that mattered. How could he turn away from that spark of hope? Jason worked late into the night, the garage glowing under the flicker of a single bulb. He scavenged an old bicycle frame from the back, hammering and shaping it into a replacement part with sweat dripping down his brow. The boy's mother kept checking her phone, worry creasing her face, but Jason waved her off. "This isn't just about fixing a wheelchair," he said, tightening the final bolt with a satisfying click. "It's about giving him his freedom back." When he finally rolled the wheelchair out, the boy let out a gasp that echoed in the quiet night. Jason hadn't just patched it up, he'd transformed it. The wheels were sturdier, the brakes worked like a dream, and he'd even adjusted the seat for extra comfort. The boy hesitated, his small hands hovering over the wheels. Then, with a tentative push, he glided forward, his face lighting up like a 4th of July sky. "It works. It's better than ever," he shouted, his voice brimming with joy. His mother's eyes filled with tears, as she grabbed Jason's hand, squeezing it so tightly it almost hurt. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to us." Jason just smiled, brushing off the praise. That's what mechanics do, right? We fix things. As they rolled away into the night, Jason let out a long, tired breath, his body aching but his heart full. He'd done the right thing, even if it cost him a day's work. But oh, how could he have known that this one act of kindness was about to spark something absolutely extraordinary? 2 days later, as Jason locked up his shop under a fading sunset, a low, rumbling roar shook the air. What was that? He stepped outside, squinting into the sky, and his jaw dropped. A sleek private jet, its surface gleaming like polished silver, was descending toward the tiny airstrip just beyond town. In all his years here, Jason had never seen anything like it. This airstrip was for crop dusters and the occasional medevac chopper, not some billionaire's toy. The jet touched down smoothly, kicking up a cloud of dust that danced in the evening light. Jason stood frozen, his heart pounding, as a glossy black car pulled up beside the jet. Why did this feel like the start of something huge? He had no reason to be nervous, but his gut screamed that everything was about to change. Jason watched, speechless, as the jet settled on the airstrip, looking wildly out of place in their sleepy little town. No one around here had that kind of money. The black car's tinted windows hid its passengers, adding to the mystery. Jason swallowed hard, his palms sweaty. Why was he so on edge? The jet's door swung open, and a set of shiny metal stairs unfolded with precision. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, adjusting his tie like he owned the world. He glanced around, then motioned back to the jet. Out came an older man, his silver hair catching the last rays of sunlight, his presence commanding respect. Who were these guys? Their polished shoes and confident strides screamed wealth and power. Jason was about to turn away when the older man's eyes locked onto his heart skipped a beat. The older man said something to the first, who nodded and headed for the car. Seconds later, the car's engine roared to life and sped straight toward Jason's garage. What did they want with him? His pulse raced as he wiped his greasy hands on his overalls, the car screeching to a stop right in front of his shop. The suited man stepped out, adjusting his cufflinks with a practiced flick. "Jason Carter?" he asked, his voice smooth. Jason hesitated. Yeah. That's me." The man's lips curved into a slight smile. "I'm Daniel Grayson, representing Mr. William Hawthorne." He gestured to the older man, who was now exiting the car with an air of authority. "May we have a word?" Jason glanced around, half expecting a hidden camera crew to jump out. Was this a prank? But the quiet street was empty. Just these two imposing figures standing before his rundown garage. "Sure," he said, clearing his throat. "What's this about?" William Hawthorne stepped forward, his sharp eyes studying Jason like he was reading his soul. "2 days ago, you fixed a wheelchair for a young boy. You refused payment and worked late to make it perfect." Jason's stomach twisted. He hadn't given it much thought since it was just the right thing to do. "Yeah, I did," he said cautiously. A faint smile crossed Hawthorne's face. "That boy is my grandson." Jason's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" The jet, the car, the suits, it all clicked. He'd helped someone way more important than he'd realized. Hawthorne's voice was steady, but there was warmth in it. "My daughter told me everything, how you wouldn't take a dime, how you used your own scraps, how you poured hours into making that wheelchair better than ever." Jason shrugged, his cheeks flushing. It was just a wheelchair. He needed it. I couldn't let him struggle, you know? Hawthorne's gaze softened, a flicker of something deep: respect, gratitude. It wasn't just a wheelchair, Jason. It was his independence, And you gave that back to him. Jason stood there, speechless. He was just a small-town guy who fixed cars and the occasional lawnmower. This felt way bigger than anything he'd ever done. Hawthorne continued, his tone firm. I don't believe in debts. Jason, I believe in rewarding good people. He nodded to Daniel, who pulled a sleek black envelope from his coat. I have an offer for you. Jason's heart pounded as he stared at the envelope. What kind of offer? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hawthorne's smile was cryptic. The kind that'll change your life forever. Jason's fingers trembled as he eyed the envelope in Daniel's hand. What could possibly be inside? He was just a mechanic, scraping by in a crumbling garage. Nothing in his life had prepared him for standing face to face with a billionaire offering something life-changing. With a shaky breath, he took the envelope and pried it open. Inside was a single sheet of crisp, expensive paper. His eyes scanned the words, but his brain couldn't keep up. Was this real? He blinked, shook his head, and read again. It was a contract, a business proposal, and at the bottom a number so massive his knees nearly buckled. This can't be real, he whispered, his voice shaking. Hawthorne's face was unreadable. Oh, it's very real. Jason's throat went dry. You want to hire me? Hawthorne nodded, his eyes gleaming. Not just hire you, Jason. I want you on my team, running a cutting-edge facility, designing and fixing high-end mobility gear. Your skills, your heart, they're wasted here. He glanced around the garage, its flickering lights and oil-stained floor, a stark contrast to his words. You deserve better. Jason's hands shook as he clutched the contract. The salary alone was more than he'd ever dreamed of, and the benefits, housing, healthcare, resources he didn't even know existed were mind-blowing. Why me? He asked, his voice raw. Hawthorne's expression softened. Because people like you are 1 in a million. You didn't help my grandson for money. You did it because it was right. That kind of goodness, that integrity, it's worth more than any fancy degree or resume. What could Jason say to that? His heart was racing, and the weight of this moment felt heavier than any engine he'd ever lifted. Was this his chance to finally break free from the struggle? Jason's heart was pounding so hard, he could barely hear his own thoughts. The offer from William Hawthorne was massive, too enormous to even grasp. Could he really leave behind the only life he'd ever known? His entire existence had been about scraping by, barely keeping his head above water. With his tiny garage as his whole world, the idea of walking away from it, could he actually do that? Hawthorne, sensing his hesitation, fixed him with a steady gaze. Take your time, Jason. Think it over. But listen, if you say yes, you'll never struggle again. You'll have everything you need to change lives, just like you did for my grandson. Jason let out a slow, shaky breath, his mind spinning with questions. Could he leave this small town behind? Could he step into a world so far beyond anything he'd ever imagined? He glanced at the contract in his hands, then back at Hawthorne. I need some time, he said, his voice barely steady. Hawthorne nodded, his expression kind but firm. Of course, but I'll need an answer soon. Jason stood there, watching as the billionaire and his assistant strode back to their sleek black car. The private jet hummed softly in the distance, its engines a low rumble against the evening sky. As the car pulled away, Jason's eyes dropped to the contract again. His whole life had been about fixing things: cars, bikes, engines. But now he had the chance to fix something huge, his own future. How could he wrap his head around that? That night, Jason barely slept a wink. The contract lay on his workbench, its numbers and words dancing in his mind every time he closed his eyes. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a complete overhaul of his life, leaving everything behind, diving into a world he knew nothing about, scared him more than anything ever had. What if he wasn't cut out for it? The next morning, he dragged himself to the garage, hoping the familiar routine would clear his head. He tightened bolts, checked engine fluids, and wrestled with a stubborn transmission on an old pickup truck. But no matter how hard he tried to focus, his thoughts kept drifting back to that sleek black envelope. Around mid-afternoon, a soft hum broke through his haze, the unmistakable sound of an electric wheelchair. Jason turned, and there was little Ben. His face lit up with a grin as he glided toward him with ease. Olivia, his mother, followed close behind, her smile just as bright. "It's perfect," Ben shouted, his excitement practically bursting out of him. "It moves so smoothly, and I hardly have to push at all." Jason knelt beside him, checking the wheels with a practiced eye. "That's what I like to hear, buddy. No issues at all?" Ben shook his head, his grin widening. "Nope, you're the best mechanic ever." Jason chuckled, but Olivia's face turned serious. She stepped closer, her voice low. "I heard about the offer, Jason." He tensed. News spread like wildfire in this town. Why was he even surprised? "Yeah, I'm still mulling it over," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. Olivia sighed, her eyes searching his. "Jason, I know this garage is your whole life, but do you realize what this opportunity could mean? You could help so many people. Kids like Ben are out there everywhere, struggling to get around, needing someone with your skills." Jason looked at Ben, his heart squeezing tight. He'd never thought of it like. Fixing Ben's wheelchair had been a small act of kindness. But what if he could do that on a grand scale? Olivia's voice softened. "You've spent your life helping others. Jason, this is your chance to do it in a way that changes lives forever." Jason swallowed hard, his throat tight. He'd always been the guy in the background, quietly fixing what was broken, never asking for the spotlight. The idea of stepping into a bigger role, one where people depended on him in a whole new way, was downright terrifying. Before he could say anything, Ben reached out and grabbed his hand, his small fingers gripping tight. "If you go, will you still fix my chair if it breaks?" Jason's chest ached, and he nodded, his voice thick. "Of course, buddy. Always." Ben's smile was like sunshine. "Then I think you should go." Jason let out a long breath, the weight of the decision pressing down harder than ever. Had he been searching for an answer all this time, only for it to find him in the words of a child? Long after Ben and Olivia left, Jason stood alone in his garage, staring at the contract on his workbench. His hands hovered over the paper, but he couldn't bring himself to sign it. This decision felt bigger than anything he'd ever faced. He'd poured his heart into this garage, fixing cars and helping neighbors with whatever they needed. Leaving it behind felt like betraying a piece of himself. As he paced, the crunch of tires on gravel snapped him out of his thoughts. A sleek black car pulled up, and out stepped a man in a crisp suit and dark sunglasses, the same guy from the private jet. Jason's pulse quickened. The man approached with a confident stride, extending his hand. "Jason, I hope you've had time to think things over." Jason shook his hand, hesitating. "I have, but I'm not sure I'm the right guy for this." The man studied him for a moment, then gestured to the car. "Come with me. I want to show you something." Jason frowned but nodded, curiosity winning out. He slid into the passenger seat, and soon they were driving out of town, the man silent as the scenery blurred by. Finally, they turned onto a long road leading to a massive, gleaming facility. Jason's eyes widened. What was this place? It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The man parked and led him inside, where engineers and mechanics buzzed around, working on wheelchairs, prosthetics, and high-tech mobility devices. Jason watched in awe as they tested sleek, advanced models, each one designed to change someone's life. "This is what we do," the man said, his voice steady. "And we need someone like you, someone who doesn't just fix things, but cares about the people using them. Your work with Ben proved that. That's why we chose you." Jason's emotions swirled, his heart pounding. He'd always known his work mattered, but seeing lives being transformed, made it all feel so much bigger. He turned to the man, his voice shaky. "What happens if I say yes?" The man's smile was warm. "Your life changes forever." Jason exhaled, staring at the bustling facility, the passionate people inside, and the future that suddenly felt crystal clear. For the first time since that envelope arrived, he knew exactly what he had to do. Jason stood at the facility's entrance, hands on his hips, taking it all in. He'd made his choice. He was taking the offer. A new life, a new purpose, a chance to make a difference far beyond the walls of his old garage. Inside, engineers worked with quiet focus, crafting custom wheelchairs, prosthetic limbs, and mobility devices that gave people their freedom back. Jason saw the same passion in their eyes that he'd always felt when he fixed something for someone in need. He took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in. The man in the suit approached, handing him a badge with his name on it. "Welcome to the team, Jason. We've been waiting for someone like you." Jason turned the badge over in his hand, feeling its weight. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore, he was part of something massive. Weeks flew by. In a whirlwind, Jason dove into the work, learning cutting-edge techniques, tinkering with advanced tech, and helping design better mobility solutions. He'd never felt so challenged or so alive. Every day, he met people whose lives had been transformed by what they were building, and every day, he thought of Ben and Olivia. Then, one morning, as he walked into the facility, he spotted a familiar figure in a brand new wheelchair. It was Ben. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw Jason, and Olivia, standing beside him, wiped a tear from her cheek. We wanted to surprise you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "They built this just for him. It's state-of-the-art, and he moves so easily now, all because of you." Jason knelt beside Ben, admiring the wheelchair's sleek design. "How's it feel, buddy?" Ben's grin was infectious. "Like I can go anywhere." Jason's chest tightened. This was why he'd said yes. Olivia pulled an envelope from her purse. "One more thing. Ben and I wanted to give you something." Jason hesitated, then opened it, finding a handwritten letter from Ben. He read it slowly, his throat closing up. "Thank you for fixing my old wheelchair. But more than that, thank you for believing in me. You didn't just fix something, you changed my life." Jason closed his eyes, the words hitting him hard. Then he smiled at Ben, ruffling his hair. "No, buddy. You changed mine.